The Smoke Beneath the Glamour. The night was electric, as the MGM Grand in Las Vegas glowed under the desert sky, a glittering monument to excess. It was 1980, and the casino was full, with the chime of slot machines and the clink of chips filling the air. But in the hidden corners of the hotel, beneath the glamour and the noise, something far darker was stirring. Catherine Martin had just checked in. It was her first night in Las Vegas, a treat she'd promised herself for years. A friend had recommended the MGM, the largest hotel in the world, and the excitement of the city had pulled her in like a magnet. She marveled at the ornate chandelier above the grand lobby as she walked toward the elevator. Her room was on the 14th floor. But as she entered the elevator, something about the air felt wrong. Too thick, too heavy. The doors slid shut, and the hum of the machinery seemed to grow louder, pressing against her ears. Catherine felt a flutter of unease. She shook it off. It was just nerves. She was here to have fun. The bell rang and the doors opened to the 14th floor. Catherine stepped out into a narrow hallway, the carpet beneath her feet plush and soft, the lights overhead warm and welcoming. But it wasn't the luxury she noticed. It was the silence. The hotel seemed too quiet, almost abandoned. A few rooms had their doors slightly ajar, but the usual bustle of guests was nowhere to be found. As she made her way to her room, a strange sensation crawled up her spine. Something wasn't right. She hesitated outside her door, the number 1427 glimmering in gold. It seemed as though the hallway had grown colder, the faint scent of something acrid in the air. She frowned, wondering if the air conditioning was on the fritz. She unlocked her door, stepped inside, and froze. It was the smell. Smoke. A faint but unmistakable odor curling through the air like an unseen hand. It wasn't the pleasant, warm scent of incense or a fireplace. It was something more ominous, the kind of smoke you could feel in your lungs before you could see it. Her heart skipped a beat. She hurried to the window, her fingers fumbling as she drew the curtains back. The lights of the strip flickered outside, the world bustling and alive. But within the room, the air grew thicker. Suddenly, a crackling sound broke the silence. The overhead lights buzzed, flickered, and then went out, plunging her into darkness. A distant siren wailed. The fire alarms began to blare, screeching through the walls, high-pitched and relentless. Her phone rang. Catherine's hand shook as she answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hello?" It was the front desk, a calm, professional voice on the other end. "Miss Martin, we have an emergency situation. A fire has broken out in the hotel. Please remain in your room. Do not use the elevators. We'll send someone to escort you to safety." Her pulse quickened. "A fire? How bad is it?" "Don't worry," the voice said. "You're safe for now. Just stay in your room." The line went dead before Catherine could respond. She set the phone down, her body tingling with nervous energy. She could hear faint shouting from somewhere down the hallway, the growing thrum of panic seeping into the walls. The fire was getting closer. And that's when she heard it. A low, guttural groan like the hotel itself was alive, tired and in pain. It came from deep within the hotel. The walls shuddered, the ceiling creaked, and then, a sudden boom, a blast of heat hit her face from the hallway. She turned, bolting for the door. But as she reached for the handle, a sound froze her in place. A woman's voice, desperate and cracked with fear, calling from down the hallway. "Help me!" The woman was screaming for help. Catherine hesitated. The rational part of her brain screamed to run. There was no time. But that voice, it was so raw, so real. She opened the door just a crack, peering into the smoke-filled hallway. Through the haze, she saw shadows darting, running past. Then, there, the figure of a woman stumbling toward her, face distorted with terror, her body racked with coughs. The woman's hands were outstretched, pleading. "Please," she gasped, voice barely audible over the crackling fire. Catherine took a step forward, but the moment her foot crossed the threshold, the hallway seemed to shift. The woman's form blurred, melting into the smoke, vanishing like a wisp of vapor. Catherine froze, heart racing. The eerie, guttural groan from earlier reverberated once more, louder now. The building wasn't just burning. It was alive, thrumming with some malevolent energy, drawing them all into its flames. She slammed the door shut, her breath shallow and quick. The fire was closing in. The hotel had become a labyrinth, and she was trapped in its fiery embrace. Every corner, every creaking floorboard seemed to whisper her name, a sinister invitation to the blaze that devoured everything in its path. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. It was the front desk. She hesitated before answering, afraid of what she might hear. "Miss Martin," the voice said, but it was different this time, more strained. "I'm sorry." The voice cracked. "You need to leave now." Catherine's pulse raced as she glanced at the phone screen. The call had come from the front desk, yet the number had changed. The voice wasn't human anymore. Before she could process what was happening, the walls seemed to groan once again, the building shifting beneath her feet. The fire was no longer just in the halls. It was creeping up through the walls, moving, searching. She turned toward the door, knowing she couldn't escape. But then she heard it, the woman's voice again, distant and faint from just beyond the door. "Help me." Catherine took a deep breath, and before she could second-guess herself, yanked the door open one last time. Would she make it out? What happens when the fire consumes everything, even the people trying to escape? The answer waits in the smoke.